And then sometimes it's like, oh yeah, that didn't, we're gonna try that again. Anyway, it got us the
Right.
first part, so we're good there.
Okay. We're good.
So with I guess my first question would be, well, why tequila? What was it about tequila over other spirits and liquors that was like, yeah, this is the vibe I'm looking for. This is where I feel I can fit and grow and build something special.
Well, most of the time as we're younger, we're drinking, we learning about liquors and spirits. So then as we gradually get older, we start getting to drinking spirits that are more premium. We're doing it more for the experience and not to get drunk. So when my husband and I actually started dating, he was actually into tequila more than I was. I mean, we all knew the two top tequilas that were out there, 1799 plus one and Pat and Ron. And everybody knew those, right? And him and I started just as dating, trying to influence each other, trying to look, I guess like we knew something. We were looking at different tequilas. So we were starting to look at more expensive tequilas, more premium tequilas. And while doing that, we started learning a lot more about tequila.
Okay.
And, so we actually started researching. And, we did find out during our research that tequila is considered a cleaner spirit just because it is made from a plant, is made from the agave plant. So it's naturally gluten free. It is naturally very, very, I can't say zero, but I can say very, very low in sugar and carbs. So for me being a 2-time cancer survivor, it does not spike my glycemic index because of my pancreatic cancer experience. I am pre-diabetic. So I need to kind of watch what I'm doing when I'm imbibing in spirits. And I'm sorry, I'm still human. I'm still going to want a cocktail here and there, So I wanted to look for something that wouldn't, make me have a hangover, make me have a headache because wine, I love wine, but I can't drink it like
Mm.
that because I would wake up with a massive headache or stomach aches and all of those things because my body cannot process other sugars and the sulfites. So when we started dating, we getting into tequila and everything. And both him and I have been in the corporate world for over 20 years, both of us. And, we can't control that world, and I've been laid off a couple of times from my jobs because they were moving my position to Mexico or something like that, or moving it to another space. My husband was a VP of operations at the largest financial institution in he kept getting moved around and you get tired of that. So we started talking about what can we do to control our destiny and control our future on what we're giving into this life.
Mm.
And so we were talking about it and I said, if you could do anything in the world, what would you do? And he said, I would own a tequila company. But who
Look.
does that? We don't know anybody. No, we can't do that. And I was like, why not? And he said, because don't nobody do that, but he likes to explain it as, what, in society, we always go towards the negative. We
Mhm.
don't go towards the positive of what we can do. We always, find the reason, the excuse why we can't do something.
Right.
So I set out to disprove his theory.
Right.
So a couple of days later, I actually found a distillery that we work with today.
Wow.
And it was about 2 days. I was on that computer. I was looking and
Come on, Google. Give me something.
right. I was Googling. I found the distillery. They responded back, went through this whole process. My husband was still skeptical about doing it. He's like, we ain't gonna have no money. You gotta have like millions of dollars to do that and all this other type of
Sir.
stuff. I was like, I got you. And so,
Sir.
just kept talking to him about
Yeah.
it. This happened over a course of about 4 months. I got some samples sent to us from the distillery. My husband was still like, "Oh, they gonna be nasty. It's not gonna be good, and everything." So we got we got the samples, and they were actually good. And he was like, "Do you really think we can do this?" I was like, yeah."
Do you think I would have been
And
on here Googling and making phone calls if I
exactly.
didn't think we could do it?
And
Sir.
exactly, you'd be like, "Sir, look, okay, so I'm a financial analyst, so I'm a forecaster. I'm a budgeter. I do that." And so I said, "I'm gonna come up with a budget, and if we do a small batch, this is how much it's going to take. This is what we have to do." And he was like, "Okay, I mean, if you think so." He was still kind of skeptical about it. So going through that process, I learned as I went because there is no blueprint
Right.
on how to create a tequila brand. There may be something out there for vodka or whiskey because those are spirits that can be made in the US. The tequila has to be made in
Mexico,
Mexico.
yeah.
So you also have to deal with the Mexican government and the US government.
Wow.
So it was an on the job learning type of thing that I did. But 11 months later, we had a bottle in hand. And so we officially launched August 27th of 2018.
Wow.
And at that moment, when we launched, I didn't find out till later, but at that moment, I became the first Black woman to own or co own a tequila brand at that time
Wow.
because there were no other women who had a tequila brand at that time. I do see that there are some now, and I hope, I was an inspiration for that in some way because I think there's a new one she's launching in 2022, another one she launched in 2020, and another one she launched this year sometime in 2021. So I'm hoping, either they read the story or they found out or something,
Right.
that I had some kind of influence or something in that, because I do feel that Black women need to be in this space because we have not been. We've been so underrepresented in this space. It's such a white male dominated industry
Right.
that we have a lot of our culture of what we want to give and what we feel like it should taste,
Yeah.
to
Oh
give
yeah.
to the industry. So I felt it was important. So that's kind of how we got started. My husband was skeptical at first, but he's all on board now.
Like, yes, we're doing it, ma'am. I
He's
was like,
all on board
who's
now.
we? Who's we? Yeah.
Right,
What your
right.
naysaying?
This is
It
because I said we can do it.
look, I because I'm at the beginning of a brand launch situation myself, and
Hmm.
the idea of not having a blueprint. I would love for you to kind of speak a little bit about that. I think what over the last year 2 years now, that we have a lot more people leaving their traditional work
Yes,
scenarios and starting something new. They, in an effort to pursue happiness and an effort to pursue more joy and more abundance in life, people are just moving away from like the model of work that does not center humanity. It really centers
correct.
capitalism and productivity in it by any means necessary. And I think, while I'm not anti-capitalist, I am more healthy capitalism. I think it has its place and it can aspire great things in people. At the same time, if we center it as a core belief or as a core value, it can be a challenge because it limits you. You can't think
Hmm.
creatively because you're constantly thinking about a singular goal, which is of course
Absolutely.
profit. And I'm just like, yes, you need money to exist, you need profit to exist, but excuse me, but you need people first. And
Hmm.
capitalism doesn't necessarily center people as people, they center people as products. And so,
True.
when you are entering a new space, the one thing that has been at least challenging for me, which is typically challenging for me, is that I always want to do something that I've never seen anyone do before, or at least someone who looks like me. And so when you get into situations like you're watching, video and interviews of like other CEOs and founders and things like that, the question that rarely gets answered is the how. Like, how did you do it? Most
Hmm.
people are like, I was here and then I was here. And you're like, there is a whole
Right.
lot of space in between.
Right.
And, as quickly as you got got things moving. I don't think people believe you can move that quickly. A lot of times you have those two schools of thought. Start where you are, fumble around for 6 months, hopefully something works, or take 5 years to start anything because you're so busy trying to make sure each step is perfect that you don't ever really move. And so, to not find especially Black women, to not find ourselves caught in one of those extremes. Wow, it is dry in here today. to
That's why I'm drinking my lemon hot water.
See, this is why I was like, I didn't get not a single liquid beverage this morning. Coffee, tea, water, nothing. To not find ourselves caught in the middle of that or caught at the, on either side of those extremes. What was your, I guess, first, what was your approach mentally? Like, when you were first like, okay, we're going to do the thing, because I think saying yes is like always the first step. Yep, we're doing this, we're going to commit to doing
Hmm.
it. And even if we go, let's do it for 3 years, if it doesn't work, we'll walk away. But it was like, nope, yes is always the biggest move.
The
And
biggest
then
hurdle.
after yes, it's the structure of how to move, the strategy, that's the word, the strategy of how to go from the yes to I have a bottle in my hand. And most
Right.
people just don't answer that question. It's almost like they go, it's, ooh, good Lord, it's magical and we just are all of a sudden here, and you're just like, that can't be
Right.
the case.
No, it's a lot of things just because this is not my first rodeo in a business. It's not my first rodeo. I did have previous businesses before because I believe I've always been that person looking, even though I've been in the corporate world since I was 23 years old.
Mm,
I've always been looking for what else do I have to offer to the world? You
mhm.
know, I had, especially being young, I had so much potential to do this, to do that. And I was always looking for a business. So I've had several businesses in the past. Some were very short lived. And actually I had a business that actually lasted almost 10 years. It was at the height of when e-commerce actually first started.
Got you.
So I did have business foundational knowledge. So I knew, okay, if I'm going to start a business on the legal side, I need to make sure I have, my LLC or corporation. I need to have this. I need to have that. I need to have a business account,
Right.
EIN. I knew all of those type of things to do. As far as for doing something in the spirits industry, as I said, it is not a blueprint, but I asked questions, because I was determined to figure out how we're going to do this. And so one of my first questions that I asked actually to the distillery that I found, because they were very open about answering questions. So I think that is what propelled me to, because once they would tell me something, I would Google and find out more. So I would say, okay, so what is really like the first step? And they were like, okay, we have a contract, and we have an agreement, and then the Mexican government has to approve it, and then you have to go over here and you need to get an importer. And then so at that point I got found out a company, and then after each question that I asked, more information would be revealed to me because I would research it, and I would find out, okay, I might need this next. And then what I would do is, between those two companies that I was working with and I still work with today, they answer my questions. So it helped continue me to propel on what I was doing. I didn't know, and I'm sure a lot of people don't know, in the spirits industry, when you see a bottle, right? You see a bottle, these are all different components. Okay. So
Look,
it's a bottle is different, the cork is different, the label
the
is different. You
label.
have
I
to
was
get
about to
all of
say,
these
as a
different
graphic
things.
designer in another life, yeah,
Yes, they are all different components that you have to find a company for. You have to negotiate pricing, all of these things. And I think it was just because I was determined to go forward with this project, and because I was determined to find out everything that I could, I was asking questions.
mm,
And I was not letting the fact that I did not know in the beginning be an excuse not to do it. As I said in the beginning, I have a small business consulting company, and that is one of the main things that with people that we work with, they have that fear of execution.
ooh,
And they do find, we find is either those two things that you said, they need to find everything need to be perfect before they do anything, or it's just like, okay, we just gonna go
girl,
and this is how we get here. And so what I find is a lot of the clients that we work with, one, structure is something that they do not know
yeah,
anything about. Okay. And I am a structure person. I will get you
yeah,
together.
yeah. I'm like,
Okay.
have some
To
systems,
make
people,
sure,
have some systems, even if
yes,
there's
has
only
some
two of them to start.
systems, has some
Yeah,
processes, because if you have those are things you can always fall back on
right,
when you are moving forward in a business venture. And then I always have to tell people, it's not going to be perfect. Okay. Is life perfect? We get challenges every day.
yeah,
You have to learn how to stick and move, roll, pivot, adapt,
exactly,
any of those things. You have to learn how to do that. And so when I speak a lot of times, and I've been on many panels and things like that about that, that is always a big thing. People have a fear
yeah,
and they don't execute.
exactly.
That's usually what the issue
It
is,
really
because
is.
they have a fear because they don't know.
Mm.
And I didn't know, but I kept moving.
Sometimes you
I,
just have to live in the I don't know until you do know. You
yes,
will eventually
yeah,
know. I think
ask
that's the
questions.
thing. It's like you eventually will know. And when you
Yes,
walk away from whatever it is, you will know more for the next time. And it's just like, even if this is
exactly.
the first time out, it's worth the risk because it's such an education. So if even if you
Yes,
relaunch the same thing again, if you know decide to start like the skincare brand or a body care brand
exactly.
or whatever it is, something that it requires a lot of moving parts because distribution is like one of those big questions. People are like, oh, I want to start
Hmm.
something, and they're like, what do you know about bottling? What do you know about production? What do you know about shipping? What do you know? And they're like,
Absolutely.
uh, nothing. I'm like, okay, well,
And
you
that
leave me.
that trips them up.
Look,
That trips them up all the time. And think that what's funny is with our company, I don't just help people with spirits, so it goes to the point that once you have the business foundation of knowing something, knowing either knowing it or knowing how to get it
right.
or knowing how to find it, you can help or do whatever you're going to do. Some of our clients are, opening senior adult daycare.
Wow.
We have, someone doing podcasts. We have someone doing a water. We have someone we have so many just different areas. We have a music person.
Okay.
We have so many different areas and industries that we work with because truly the foundation is one, of course, making sure you have structure and processes, but two, if you don't know, then you ask.
Yeah. Oof.
That's all it
Let
is.
let
Okay,
me.
but so many people are afraid of asking because they don't want to seem like they don't know what they're
I'm just
talking
like,
about
well,
or
what
they
is the
don't seem
point
like
of
they don't want to do
that?
it. And
Like,
it's like, but if you want to grow, if you want to do something, why won't you
why won't you
ask?
ask? It's interesting to watch some of like my younger relatives, the ones in like grade school and such still, and how there is a certain level of like social conditioning to this
Mm-hmm.
idea that you already should know. And so
Mm-hmm.
like helping them with like homework, and I have a cousin who went into third grade this year. And like when she started school first and second grade, it was like, oh, I should already know all of this information. And I'm like, but how would you know? Like I would ask her all the
Right.
time, and she'd get really frustrated with herself. And I'm like, why would you know how to do this math problem? This is your first time, right?
Right.
Yeah. I'm like, so how would you know how to do it? Well, I should know how to do it. I'm like, I don't know where we
Why?
signed on for that. Like you come into the world knowing all you need to know in order to function. But it was just like reconditioning her brain to understand that it's okay to be curious and inquisitive
Mm-hmm.
and to feel empowered in not knowing something, because
Mm-hmm.
you get the privilege of discovering the answer, and that's the part that's exciting, is the journey of finding out the information. And getting adults excited about that is definitely a hell of a lot harder, because that idea of you should know. And I think part of that comes from this like kind of capitalism centering idea that you should know that whole, oh, everyone gets equal opportunity to move their life into a space they would like it to be. And then we
Right.
forget to tell folks, well, yeah, the American dream is possible, but you need a lot more information than you
Yeah.
have. And the only way to acquire that is to ask for it. And the
Yeah.
assumption that someone won't be generous enough to answer it,
Yeah.
someone is going to look at you like you're stupid. Like everyone knows this information, and you're just like, the more
Right.
you spend time with people like yourself and people who have enough courage to start something, the more you realize that the difference between them and everybody else is that they have the courage to ask and a willingness to sit for the answer. And a lot of times people are just like, well, I don't have the humility for that. And you're like, all
But
right,
I
well,
do, and I have to explain to some people my story of growing up like that. I grew up as a type A personality. Everything had to be perfect. I
yeah,
need to know. I need to have everything. At one point, I was on a medical track. I was going to be a neurosurgeon because that was something that I was interested in. And being that type A, I'm on the go. I know I need to know everything. And it's it's one of those things that, like you said, is a humility thing when you realize you don't know and you need to find out,
yeah,
and you have to be humble enough to ask for information, and you don't know everything.
right.
Because me growing up being the smart girl, it was like, oh girl, you got all A's all through
We
your
was
whole
in the
career,
same
you was
support group,
always
let
on
me tell
honor
you.
roll, and you was this and this, everything. No,
No,
I
I don't.
don't.
No, I don't.
No,
And
I
I
don't.
I live that exact same life. Like I said, I think
Yes.
we were in the same support group, because at some point
Yes.
it was assumed that you knew. You're like, well,
Yeah.
you're smart, your grades are good, teachers love you,
Yeah.
you like
Yeah.
school,
That was me.
you like scholarship, so obviously and so you
Yeah.
spend so much time like, do I live up to this expectation of people assuming that
Exactly.
I already know, or do I like bust the door wide open and go, I don't know. I don't know everything and I'm curious to know more,
Yeah.
but you keep thinking that I know everything. And so you don't answer questions and you don't engage in
Mm-hmm.
conversation. I told my sister not too long ago, it was interesting that by the time I got to high school, even with my grades and all of like this, the school, the scholastic testing and all that, like I did all that stuff really well. And then by the time my senior year came around, my senior English teacher was like, "So what college are you going to?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, with your grades and everything, I assumed you'd be going to college. And I'm like, no one's ever talked to me about college.
Okay.
Not a relative, not a grandparent, not a parent, no one.
Girl.
Like there was no conversation about that. And so the last half of like my senior year of high school, I really had to like figure that out on my own because I'm like, well, what do I need to do? And they were like, well, you probably are too late to apply for, the incoming year, but maybe you can go next year. And then I will never forget, she handed me this little list, this handwritten list of like Ivy League colleges. And I looked at the paper and I had no clue what any of these names were. And I was like, well, what's this? She was like, and she was just, she was incredulous. She was just,
Like,
you
you
don't
don't know
know
what I'm
what
talking about?
like
Like,
William and Mary and like Sarah Lawrence and any of those colleges
right.
are. And I was just like, no. She was like, these are all Ivy League colleges. And I'm just like, oh, she was like, you can get into any of these. And that was the first time I had heard that. And
Okay.
so that weird, I don't know if it's something unique to like the Black community, but that kind of odd, you're smart, but we don't know what to do with any of that. So we'll just encourage you.
You know, I, the thing is, I grew up as because I was going to be the first one to go to college. So that was something that was being talked about all the time. Like I was called Doctor. My last name my maiden name is Rivers. I was called Doctor Rivers from the time I was 7 years old. So
Wow.
that pressure on me from seven, because I said I wanted to be a doctor when I was seven, and so my family they just started calling me Doctor Rivers, and it
Wow.
was like okay. So college was kind of expected of
Expected.
me.
Okay.
And, I went to, in Detroit, one of the well known high schools here is called Cass Tech. I went to Cass Tech, and I went to one of the top high schools in Detroit. And for me being born and raised in Detroit, it was just like, oh, you a smart girl from Detroit. You about to go,
About to go up for you.
you're not going to be that stereotypical of what comes out of Detroit.
Right.
So you're going to be, that smart one. You're going to be that one. You're going to be this. So for me, I think I felt a lot of pressure because I had to live up to, oh,
Mm,
they've been calling you doctor since you were seven. Oh, you a Detroit girl, but you know what? You smart. You gonna make it out of here. You gonna do something different. And I actually was like, because I went to Cass Tech, they had we had our own teacher who was over like college stuff because so many
yeah.
kids went to college and things like that. I was accepted to some very well-known universities, but I went through a burnout actually.
Wow.
It was something because even after I graduated from high school, I started college 2 weeks later
Girl,
because I was in a honors program over the summer before
same.
starting in the fall, and then I took some advanced placement classes in high school. So I was testing out of freshman classes. So when I started my freshman year, I had some sophomore classes, and
Yeah.
it was just all of this, and I was on that track. But some other things in my life kind of happened, and I felt burnt out.
Wow.
And when I decided not to go to some of those high or well-known universities, one of my counselors was like, what is wrong with you? Like you get all these scholarships, because I had gotten on the student test, ACT, SAT, I got
Oh,
high scores. They was like, you can get a scholarship for that, you can do this and this. What is wrong? And I was like, I can't. I'm burnt
I
out. I
mean,
can't. I can't.
wow.
I ended up, I actually got married young and had my oldest daughter and things like that. And, I got myself back on track. I ended up going to school again, to a university, and I actually ended up getting my MBA, but that was more of a personal um, accomplishment than from my family. I ended up not being a doctor. I actually ended up getting a business degree.
Well,
and and then of course I'm a business owner, but that was not my career path. But that pressure, like we
Yeah,
were talking about, to do it for other people because this is what they expect of
yeah.
you, it is like, oh my God. So now that I have this company, it is still some people in my family. Well, girl, you good at anything. You was gonna do something. I knew you was gonna be good. It's like, okay,
All right, okay.
thanks. Thanks for the confidence, but it's just like I didn't know what I was doing.
Look, I was like, I didn't know I was going to do it either. So I just, well,
No,
thank you for
but
believing in me because
thank you for the confidence. But they're like, you've always been good. I'm like, okay,
okay, if you say so, because I just,
right, because many years between an A and B,
yeah,
between A and B is a whole bunch of
it's
mess.
a whole lot of things. There's a whole lot of me figuring it out and discovering, like,
Exactly.
the. I think
Failures, all kind of things.
oh my god, the emotional intelligence it took to realize that you were burnt out, especially
Mm-hmm.
at that age, because a lot of times, like, when you're in your late teens and 20s, you think, oh, I can just burn through, I can just do it,
No.
I can just buckle down, and just to recognize that burnout was like not going to serve you, and it was
No.
not something to center your life around. I think we do encourage people to like work to the point of that, like, well, I mean, don't give
Mm-hmm.
up, don't not do it until you find yourself needing to go see the therapist because you hate getting up every morning. Like, why
Exactly.
live like that when I don't have to?
Right.
um
Well, I mean, I had a lot of personal stuff going on too, so that added to it.
yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, truly, when I left the university at that moment in time, I was a sophomore, but I was actually doing junior work.
Wow.
I actually snuck into a pre med class with a cadaver and everything. Like, I was in working in labs and things like that, and it's just, I think the personal stuff and that, and I was only like 19 years old. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Because it's
couldn't.
like, if I don't stop me, somebody, nobody else will.
No,
Nobody else
no.
will, because
Because
there's that
like I said, my
expectation.
counselor was like, what is wrong?
Yeah.
People's like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, I can't.
I'm like, and for the people in your life, for people like your counselor and things like that, to not recognize burnout when they
Mm-hmm.
see it and go, okay, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
make the best decision for your health, for yourself.
Exactly.
You serve no one in that state. And so
No.
for that, I was able that having a lack of support, or kind of like pseudo support. It looks like people are
Mm-hmm.
supporting you, but they are really extracting more from you,
Mm-hmm.
and almost to a place where you're like, is this for you or for me? I mean, I'm
Right. Am
look,
I doing this for myself or what?
what are we
And
really
you don't want to be
doing?
miserable doing that. I
Yeah.
didn't want to continue on that track and become a doctor and be miserable with what I was doing, even though it's a field that I truly still love to this day.
Right.
But I think I made the best decision for me. But you can also, and I'm not downing anyone working as in the corporate world. I'm not downing any of that because we all have different paths. But I see so many people who are, just with this point, are in a position that they are miserable in. That, and it goes to the point why we were talking about with um people with, especially during COVID, that they are choosing not to return to a traditional job because you know what, they figured out that it's really not something that they enjoy anymore. It is not something that they want to do anymore, and they're recognizing that maybe they're burnt out as well. And so I think that is truly a point that I came to then. And even now, with us starting our companies, I didn't want to continue to be in the corporate space and I wasn't happy there. And I think, as we were saying, a lot of people are coming to that decision because you have to figure out what is best for you in your life, but also you have to figure out what you're passionate about, what makes you happy, what is something that can be fulfilling for you in this life, because we only get one life. So we want to make sure that we are doing something that is fulfilling. And that's why truly with Anteel Tequila, on the back of every bottle, we have our tagline, which is create your legacy. And that is because we believe everyone has a legacy to offer to the world. And we try to help people and inspire them and move them to looking at what that legacy might be. So that's something that we actually talk about a lot. And that's why I think, too, with our small business consulting company, we feel like we are giving that back to those people who are deciding, what, I don't want to be in a job that's unfulfilling anymore, or I don't want to be in a corporate position that I'm not necessarily happy in. So we're giving them that information, that space to create something that they are passionate about and maybe can leave a legacy to this world.
The just trying to unmute myself. Um, that was really the tagline for this season was like Black women building legacies in
Mm-hmm.
beverage. And thinking about that, it's a question that comes up a lot in interviews, is like thinking about legacy and thinking about like generational
Mm-hmm.
growth
Correct.
is not something that is common for Black folks. We want to. I think it's not something necessarily that we don't believe in, but it's something that we find there's a gap between where we are and what we can do in that way. And it's nice to see, like in the last couple of years, that that's starting to make a shift. Actually, in the last decade, we're starting to see that shift a little bit. Like you're seeing more people go, okay, I'm going to, their financial education, their financial intelligence has increased. So they have savings accounts and other types of investment accounts that allow them to build a little more generational wealth. How can we buy property and like build homes and things like that? I think the space that we still are exploring is like, how do we build generational businesses? Because you see like,
Right.
especially the ones where the ones that have taken over the world for the most part, where you're just like, okay, that company, I don't even, does Warren, I think Warren Buffett has kids and grandkids and such. I believe he
I
does.
can't remember.
You never hear
I
him
can't
talk about
remember.
his family, but a lot of those businesses, like someone like a Jeff Bezos or an Elon Musk, or the billionaires of the world, you
Mm-hmm.
recognize that their children had the opportunity to take over a business of that size and do something super impactful in the world. And I think for Black folks, like, we have gotten to a place where we can now go, okay, so how do we do that as well, where we can pass
Right.
something down, where we can pass something on. Culturally, there's a lot of different cultures that are just like, yeah, I'm expected to go into the family business, because there's
Mm-hmm.
a family business to
Right.
go into. Like, let's be honest,
Right.
it's not so much
Right.
that,
And usually in the Black community it's not.
yeah,
And that's why I'm grateful. My daughter, who lives with us at home, because my 25-year-old doesn't, but our 13-year-old, she sees me and my husband working on these businesses. We talk to her about these businesses
great,
and we support her in her own, because she is a creative. So she's a writer.
nice,
And
okay,
we are working on self-publishing her first book that she just finished this year. And we talked to her about that. We got her an LLC, because I was like, by the time you turn 18, you'll have a business that would have been in existence for at least 5 years.
right,
We are teaching her about financial literacy. She has stocks, she has investments, she has the savings, and things like that. Those are things that I didn't have growing up.
yeah,
I didn't know about that stuff until I started looking at it, because, yeah, unfortunately, in the Black community, that's not something that's been passed down,
right,
from our parents and our grandparents. And so I wanted her to be different. I don't want her to feel like she has to go into a job when she, graduates from school or anything like that. I want her to have her own.
yeah,
And if she does end up getting something, it's because it's something that you enjoy. It's something that you feel that you can give, something to, or it's working on something that's helping, in the causes that mean something to you. I want her to have that option. I
right,
don't want her to have to feel like, oh my God, I got to go and I got to work somewhere that I don't feel like driving to. I
yeah,
don't want to be there. Why I got to do that.
yeah,
We've done that. I don't want her to have to do that. I want her to know that there are so many different other options out there. And I think as society is moving more towards, probably because of COVID, but it started moving before that, more of an entrepreneurial environment,
right.
just because people, are like, look, we're not our grandparents. We're not staying at the plant 30 years to get the gold watch. We
No,
just not doing
they don't even
that.
build
We're
jobs
not
like
doing
that.
that
They
anymore.
don't even build jobs
No,
like that anymore. I
we're not
just,
getting a pension. We're not doing that.
mm-mm. They're like, no, we don't do that no more. I remember my grandfather who
Mm-mm.
retired, and he drove me past the place he had worked, and he retired after like 45 years. And I'm like, they don't even
Mm-hmm.
build jobs like that anymore. Like, that's not even an
No,
option to be at a place for that long. And then my
no.
dad retired a couple of years ago from working for the United States Postal Service, and he had done that for 40 years. And I'm like, again, they don't
My
build jobs like
grandfather,
that.
he graduated from the
It's
postal
off.
service too. Like, yeah,
They
from like
just
40 some years. You like, what?
what? And
Like,
it's
who
just
does
like,
that?
no, they just don't.
We don't do that
We don't do that
anymore.
anymore. And I'm like, corporations don't really build jobs like that anymore. So it's not an option. And so you do
No,
have to be more creative and more flexible in what you do and what you pursue. And I think because we're living longer, we have opportunities to do more than one thing and accomplish more than one goal,
absolutely.
which is definitely on us to like seize that opportunity. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have anything I really want to contribute and I want to do, or I can't think of anything I want to do. And I'm like, and that's fine. It's not everything has to be for profit. I think that's the other framework we keep giving people is that
True.
everything you do should be profitable. Lord Jesus,
No,
that energy
no.
on the internet, I'm just like,
You
look,
know what?
we are on here on
It
Obama's internet, and y'all are acting like everything, every hobby you have has to turn into a business. And it just frankly does not.
it shouldn't. You know what? It shouldn't because and yeah, I know, we have Anteel for profit and we have our small business consulting for a profit, but a lot of things that I do outside of that with talking to people or interviews and things like that, the reward to me, and it's not even profit because these people just saw something.
Yeah.
They saw an article about me or something like that. And we did a event in Atlanta a couple weeks ago, the Atlanta Food and Wine Festival. And a lady, she said she came there specifically to meet me to let me know that she read my story in Forbes. She read my story in Essence, and she was like, you inspired me to create my own company, and I did it, and here's my card, and here's this. And that to me, no money exchange, that to me
Yeah.
is so rewarding.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I was trying not to cry like, oh
Yeah.
my God. And and a couple of people had told me that over, especially over the last year and a half, because my story has gotten out there a lot more in the last year and a half, that I inspired them to do something. To me, that's all the payment I need,
I,
because that means you are creating something out here. You are giving and contributing to the world. You're creating your legacy. And that to me is wealth over anything.
exactly. That's, to get to the end of your life and, or the end of a project or whatever, and just kind of to, whether you're closing it down or passing it on, to know that like your impact was more than just monetary is huge,
Yes.
because you see that there are businesses literally that exist for the sake of profit, and they really don't, they're not aspirational. You look at them, and a lot of
Right.
times people resent them. They're like, oh, well, I need them. I'll use the company, I'll use the brand, I'll buy the products, but I don't necessarily like the message, or I don't necessarily like
Exactly.
the company. And I'm just like, why not aspire to both? Why not have both? And I
Exactly.
think, for us, I was like, Black women, we do kind of fall into a specific set of superpowers, not the Black women are so strong they should handle everything, but that sense of wholeness when we step into
Hmm.
something. We're not just here for a singular gain. We're here to have gains
Right.
and movement across a couple of spaces. And so, especially when people are like, well, how can a tequila brand, do any of that? And it's just like, you know what? The tequila is the end product, y'all.
It
It
is. It
really is.
is because to me, it's just showing others you can do this. I'm a regular person
Right.
every day, born and raised in Detroit. And I just decided to do something different.
Yeah.
And here I am. And you can too.
How has your, because you said you had to deal with like Mexican government, um girl, how has your
Man.
experience been internationally? Like, how has that reception been? Like, do you get pushback? Do you get some kind of, I'm sure you get some odd looks in the space. They're like, what? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, when we first started, actually, because of the political environment that was going on, we started in 2017. So you can guess the political environment that was going on with Mexico at the time. Okay,
Uh,
without mentioning it, what it was. We were actually kind of very scared because the relations between Mexico and the U.S. weren't good at that time
right.
politically, and we thought that we were either going to have to wait very long for, because in order to have a tequila brand, you have to be contracted with the distillery in Mexico, and that is all regulated by the CRT, which is the government that regulates tequila in Mexico. And you have to have an agreement and lawyers and all of this stuff. And we were like, oh my god, is this going to be approved? Because again, the environment was not the best. It took them 4 months to approve it, but it was approved, because truly we wouldn't have been able to launch our brand without that, because you have to have that approval. And just internationally, thankfully I speak Spanish, so it hasn't been a language barrier.
Nice.
But and that's how I, in the beginning, I kind of got with it as well. I was able to speak, not have that barrier. But it sometimes it was challenges, more so in the beginning, not now, but because of, we had to have a power of attorney down there, we had to have certain things to deal with as far as any of the legalities dealing with getting our brand to the market. So that is something that we've had to work with. As far as me being a Black woman in this space, when we launched, and my husband and I were actually boots on the ground, grassroots, going out to stores and things like that, I got certain looks, absolutely, because here's this woman, then a Black woman, not only because I'm a woman as well, but I'm a Black woman. And when you go into a lot of these spaces, they're owned by men.
Right.
And who are you as a woman, Black woman, coming here and thinking about liquor? And so I could see the condescending tones and looks like, oh yeah, you don't know what you're talking about,
Okay.
all this. I even got oh, you a beautiful woman, but what do you know? Like what? What?
I,
So but when I start breaking things down, you can see the tone changing, the body language changing, and like, okay, so maybe she does know a little bit of what she's talking about. So, those were things in the beginning. Now, nobody really kind of questions, because I think they know me enough now to know that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to that. But
exactly.
in the beginning, absolutely, it's like as we know, especially in the Black community, you have to prove yourself 10 times over.
Right.
And I've had that in the corporate world as well, where I was the only woman or only Black woman in the room, because I've been in executive positions as well. And you have to have everything. You have to know everything. You have to be perfect, quote unquote, perfect, to be accepted, that you are someone who they will listen to,
Yeah.
and who is someone to give time to. Like, okay, I'll listen to her now.
Wow. I
You have to prove that. So, but my husband going in, they will listen to him,
they're like, oh yeah, yeah, we
no
get it, we get
problem.
it, yeah, we
Yeah,
see what
yeah,
we,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But me, it's like, what? What are
It's
you?
so interesting to like try to explain that to people, that like be the experience of being a Black woman in any space means that you always have to qualify yourself before anything
Yes,
happens. The
absolutely.
simplest thing. And people are like, well, why don't,
Yes.
because it's like they assume we know very little about everything, when it turns out that statistically that is the opposite. And so when you get in, and part of that might be pushback because of that. They find that
Mm-hmm.
Black women are more educated than most people, have natural instincts about a lot of things, and
Absolutely.
our history with everyone means that we know a little bit
Yes.
about everybody. So it's that idea that, okay, well, they have to qualify themselves, and I think part of that is just a defense mechanism at this point, because you know better. And if a Black woman
Exactly.
has the audacity to show up in a space where there aren't very many of us, you can be for
Yes.
damn certain that she probably knows more than you, because we have to,
Yes.
like, that's just the nature of
We have to.
how we have to move in all spaces. So yeah, that's fun, because eventually they're going to have
Yeah.
to admit, like, okay, well, I mean, she did know all this time, but right.
Yeah, well, what used to really get them is that because of my husband's and I other business Teak Life, since we had so many liquors sent to us for social media marketing, we learned a lot more about other spirits. And then, of course, my husband talks about it a lot as well. So I've learned so much from him in doing that business, that I not only can talk about tequila, I can talk about all this other stuff on your show too.
Look,
So, like you said, I know way more than you probably think.
and they're like, "Oh, so you know about that?" That's one thing I use, a response I typically get in certain conversations where someone's like, "So you know about that too?" I'm like, "I don't have a choice.
Yes.
I don't get the privilege of not knowing. You walk
No,
around the world
no.
not knowing all types of shit. I don't get that
Exactly. And
option.
you're okay, but I don't have
I
that
don't have that
option.
option. I
You know.
have to show up
No.
knowing your job, my job, and their job.
Exactly.
Because if I don't, then I'm not qualified. But you can show up and know half
Exactly.
of your job and keep it.
And it's
So
okay.
don't come over here. Um,
Exactly. And that's something, as we know, it's been a corporate thing with me. It's
yeah,
been, the businesses and everything, but hey, it's something we grew up with. It's something that we know.
yeah.
And so I make sure I'm always prepared.
Yep, that's the black woman's motto. We stay prepared, y'all. We are ready, so we never
Yes,
have to get ready. Um,
exactly.
I
Exactly.
did want to like uh, pull in on one thing too, like before we get to the end here. It's one of the things I've been focused on, like building this particular building out this particular idea I've been working on for about a year or two. Is the thing I started with is company culture, and I think it's a conversation more and more people are having because of the fact that they're pulling in like diversity and inclusion officers and creating new positions for that. And as a black person, that's kind of an automatic thought because you don't have a choice. When you build something, you're like, I got to think about diversity and inclusion because I have to think about
Exactly.
myself. So building your team at this point and like building a culture and building a brand, because as the brand grows, of course you bring in more people and you want to make sure everyone is moving towards the same goals and moving to it has the same core values and allows everybody to kind of move in unison. um, when you were starting, like at what point were you able to kind of put aside some of the more production side of things and start to focus on like company culture, just even the fact that you would print something on the back of your label that is like a core value for the brand and for yourself? Like when did that conversation start to happen?
Well, I think it's actually always been in the beginning because I'm in an interracial marriage.
Mm,
So, and my husband, he is a very big part of what we're doing. So, for me, it's always something that has to be included just because of the fact that it has to be represented, that our company is inclusive in everything, and everyone. And because we have Create Your Legacy, that is for everyone.
yeah,
It doesn't matter who you are and how you identify yourself,
yeah.
no matter what that is. So, with us building our company, it is making sure that we are represented in all areas.
I love it.
Because truly, the things that you do at home, the things that you identify, that has nothing to do with me. Can you do the job?
That,
Can you can you do the job? Can you produce? Can you create?
yeah,
Can you build? Can
yeah.
you give me great ideas?
Right. Can you
All
do
that
what
other
you
stuff
say
has
you
nothing.
are going to
It
do?
has nothing to do with me.
Exactly.
And it should not be.
Yeah.
And that's something we know society is not. I don't know if it's ever going to get there in our lifetimes, but it's something that should be there
Yeah.
because I'm sorry, we are all the human
Right.
race. And
I mean, it's
it
going to boil
is
down and y'all going to be like, "Oh, okay. I
it's the
guess."
human race.
Yeah.
And so I think that is just something ingrained, like we know, especially in the Black community, it's something that's ingrained in us. It's
Yeah.
something that we always know.
Yeah.
And making sure that we have other people bring along and know this, because right now we have salespeople of everything.
Nice. Yeah.
Again, can you do the
Can
job?
you do
That's
the
all.
job?
That's.
I just want
I don't care about the other stuff. Can you do the
I
job?
just never thought it was always interesting to me that when I worked in corporate spaces, I was just like, why is that important to this? Like, why does that matter here? Can they do the job that you've asked them to do with some
Exactly.
level of
Exactly.
proficiency and productivity? Well, yeah. I'm like,
You
so why
know,
do you care
right.
about the rest
And
of it?
the rest of it is truly respect.
Yeah.
we all have to respect one another in whatever space that we're in,
Exactly.
and whatever we're doing. Because if you have that respect, and you have that those people are doing what they say they can do or what they're hired to do, we really don't need the
Come,
rest.
that's gonna be
I
a
mean,
tweetable at some point.
but that's the thing,
Yeah.
is like, it's so much respect that is lost.
I think that's what happened with
that
like
is
work
that
from.
is to me the
That is
core.
the core. I think that's what happened with like work from home. The thing that people discovered is that, oh, I don't need to police my employees. I don't need to micromanage them. I can trust them to do the job I hired. And the companies and corporations that are going to have the hardest time is when they try to yank employees back into the office. And I'm like, look, yes, there is an appropriate time for people to be in a singular space together. When you're working as a team, there is an
Hmm.
advantage to be having physical contact. Does that need to happen 5 days a week, 8 hours
No,
a day? Absolutely not. I find that to be inefficient
no,
and unproductive. And a lot of times you don't get anything done. You get the most work done that first hour after you grab your coffee and nobody else is in the
yes,
office. And then at the end of the day when
yes,
everybody's left early. And I'm like, so that
yeah,
should
because
speak volumes to people.
during the day, everybody going up to everybody's desk. Hey, girl, did you see this over
Right.
here? Did you do this
You
over here? It's the socialization, and I get it
exactly.
because, like I said, my last day in corporate was August 27th, and the company that I was at, we were at home as well,
Yeah.
and they did a survey like, who wants to come in and all this. I was like, I can work at
I
home.
can do my work
I
from
don't need to
home.
be.
I can
I don't
actually
need
get
to.
done. Look at
I don't need to
this.
be there. Anybody I want to socialize with, believe me, I have their information. I can
Right.
socialize with them outside of the workspace. So I really don't need to come in there for the socialization. But they were like, well, we're going to have people come in 2 or 3 days out of the week because a lot of people wanted the socialization. But what? Like,
Oh Lord
I
have
don't need
mercy.
that.
I don't need
I
none of
get
that.
more work done with you not in my face. However, I have been reading, and again, it goes back to respect
Yeah,
and trusting that people are doing what you hire them to do, no
exactly.
matter what. I have been reading that because a lot of companies are reverting to work from home and remote work, that they are actually doing more
Yep.
to monitor what their
Oh
employees are
yeah.
doing. And
Yeah.
to me, that's not a, again, it goes back to respect, and it
Yeah.
goes back to, people doing what they say they're going to do. If you find that someone is not doing the job that you hired them to do, then you
Right.
approach that, and you resolve that.
Right.
I've been in that position, hiring and firing.
Ooh,
If I saw someone that was not doing something, then we're going to have a conversation.
that was always my
What's
approach.
going on?
Let's have a chat.
What's going on?
Yeah.
We need some training. We need, what do we need
Is
to
there some
do
personal stuff
to
going
get
on?
you right? Because there's
Exactly.
always something going on.
Yeah.
What do we need to do to make sure that you are able to do what you say you want
Want
to
to do?
do
Yeah.
and what you were hired to do?
Exactly.
If that goes beyond that and they can't, then I have to look for
Look.
someone else. But the thing is, it's all about that respect.
Right.
It's all about just understanding that. And so, I don't, because I'm not getting back in that corporate type of sense, even though I have my own corporations.
Right. But
But,
that
you
energy,
know,
yeah.
yeah, as we're continuing to build these companies and as we grow to include more people, I want to make sure that we are including everyone, no matter who, whatever they're doing. That has nothing to do with me,
Right.
but can you do the job? And if there's something that's happening, then we're gonna have a conversation about
That's
it.
really, and because my also
What's
your
going
job as a
on?
leader is to support the people doing the work. Like if you can take care of your
Exactly.
employees, they will take care of the job you gave them. They will take care of the job that they're doing.
Absolutely.
It's when employees feel kind of abandoned or isolated or
Absolutely.
left to their own struggles, and that's when you start to see problems. But most people are just like, well, I when I was in that position of like hiring and firing and training and all the other things,
Mm-hmm.
at my last job, I was a GM for a startup, and it was just like I use that method for all the times I've had to like lead a group of people. Is that okay? Well, I see your job performance is a bless you is a symptom of
Thank you.
something else going on apparently because the job
Mm-hmm.
itself is very simple and you were doing fine, especially someone who has great job performance and then all of a sudden doesn't. And so
Exactly.
it's that let's have a conversation, like talk to me about what's
Yes.
going on. You don't have to go too deep into anything that's super personal, but like if it is something personal, you're going through a divorce, you're having a hard time at home, your kids are struggling, somebody, maybe a parent is sick, maybe you just got a bad diagnosis, like all of those things factor
Exactly.
in, because at some point with all of that happening, the job is like the last priority. It's like you're showing up because you need your paycheck, and that's,
Yes.
having money and finance is important, but there's so much to get through in order to make that happen for yourself. So it's like if we can work together and collaborate on a way that allows the role you're in to either, maybe it needs to downshift and something, becomes simpler, or we take less off your plate, or maybe you're not feeling challenged enough and maybe we give you more responsibility.
Exactly.
But I feel like we overlook the opportunity to give people the autonomy and the agency to collaborate with us as leaders. It's like, it's not just,
Absolutely.
well, you just do what you're told and we're going to move on. And I'm just like, well, I want more for you than that. And like, this
Yeah.
is a job and that's great, but at some point, if you ever leave here, I want you to know that you've gained something by being here. And so yeah, so thank you. I did, as people get into, building their own brands and own companies and everything else, I think it's something that we need to encourage people to look at a bit closer. I think we encourage
Absolutely.
folks to, like, okay, write your business plan. How much money do you need to get something off the ground, get something going? Do you have a marketing team? Like, we really focus on those components, which are important, but we forget that at the end of the day, if we are looking at growth as a goal, that means that that is going to eventually include other people working for you and with you, and you need to set a tone and have a sense of, like, of core values for people to integrate into. And if it's one of those things where we don't speak to each other in like abusive and disrespectful manners, like that needs to be something you do at the outset. So when someone comes into your
Right.
space and your environment, they see, oh, everyone really speaks to each other respectfully here. Like coming out of a restaurant and having been a restaurant chef, you kind of go, that's something you have to establish early on. Like, we don't
Yes.
speak to each other that way. And so, yeah, I feel like specifically as more Black women enter spaces where we are building new things and putting new things out in the world, like the idea that we can build spaces that we would have loved to have worked in is
Yes.
definitely something I think people should put on their to-do list if they're going to build a brand or build a business. So
Absolutely.
uh,
And I, from you, even from you, my past experience, I think helps me with that.
yeah,
You, just to make sure that I am aware of what is going on with the people who do work with me,
yeah,
and we are a team.
yeah.
Even though I'm a leader,
We are a
we are a
team.
team.
Yeah, that is like such a huge thing for me. I'm like, if you can feel like I'm just part of the team, and I'm the part of
Yes.
the team that will allow you to fail, mess up, ask questions, make mistakes, and it's a
Yes.
safe space for you to do that. Because I just people, unfortunately, again, we've been conditioned to, like, you can't make mistakes, you cannot, have any type
Right.
of failing. Everything has to be perfect and flawless all the time. And I'm like, people just don't grow in those conditions.
Well, that's not a human
It's
being.
just not.
Okay. It's just
That's
not.
so much. That's so much. It's funny. I've been watching some documentaries about the work-life balance in other countries and in other cultures, and I thought, the United
Yes.
States is like, can be off the okay, really, can be off the chain about a couple things. And but then I realized, like, countries like South Korea and Thailand and places like that have had a huge increase in suicide rates because of this pressure to be perfect and to live a
Yes.
specific lifestyle in a specific way. And I'm just like, I mean, the fact that we're like number 23 on the list, and you have other countries that are like in the top 10 for those particular types of pressures. And I'm just like, what are we all doing to each other? Like, to what
It's,
end? I
yeah.
don't want you to not show up for work tomorrow because you took your own life because you felt the pressure of your job. Your job? Okay.
And I know a couple people that has happened to, unfortunately,
It's
where my husband used to work. A coworker did that exact thing.
it's just like
They took their life. Yeah.
we're asking so much from people for work. And it's just like,
Yes.
life at work is such a small part of that as a whole. And
Exactly.
the fact that they would just, everything centers around this job and this position that they have. And I'm like, we have got to do better by each other. And so, yeah,
And that's why I said, with my daughter, I don't want her to fall into that.
no.
And so we're teaching her very differently.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm like,
Yes.
put other types of human beings in the world. I feel like we do, like, this
Yes.
next generation of people, of young people coming through, will hopefully shift a couple of those things. I feel like
Exactly.
we haven't.
I hope so.
It absolutely needs to happen. I also, look, we ain't old, but we do come from like that generation of people where it was like, you
Exactly.
go to work, you come home. It was nothing creative in this way, and we weren't
No.
challenging norms in the way we are doing now, which I'm wholeheartedly for. So with these last few moments, ma'am,
Yes.
let us talk about the brand. Of course, where is it going? What are you guys working on? What can we expect? Where can we buy product? All those things.
Well, Anteel Tequila has been on the market for 3 years. We have three, I call it 3.5 expressions because we do have a limited expression, but we have the world's only coconut lime Blanco tequila because we wanted to come out with something different. Most
Yeah.
tequilas come out with a Blanco and then they do the Repo and then they do a Añejo. So we wanted to do something totally different. So the world's only coconut lime Blanco, it was our first expression. And because it was something new, a lot of people in the beginning did not know what to do with it. And now it is actually a bestseller between men and women. So it's not even that it's
Nice.
just women because you would think coconut lime, but the motivation behind it was the margarita because the margarita, everybody knows what a margarita
Right.
is. And it is a cocktail in a glass. You can
Ooh.
actually drink our coconut lime on the rocks by itself or with a splash of pineapple juice or something like that.
Mm.
And you already have a cocktail without all the sugars.
Okay.
And because I am a 2-time cancer survivor, we don't have any artificial sweeteners or synthetics in our tequila. So our coconut lime is made from the natural extracts from the coconut and the lime.
Nice.
So it's not what people usually think just because of the fact some coconut tequilas they've tried were kind of sweet. And that's because they have
Sweeteners.
sweeteners
Yep.
added. Yep. So ours is not what most people think because coconut is actually not sweet.
Hello.
So
Have you
so
ever had regular ass
um
coconut, people? You know it's
right.
not
Have you had
sweet.
coconut or coconut water? Like if you have real coconut, it's
It's
not
not
sweet.
sweet.
So that was our first expression. And along with that, we launched our reposado, which is aged 8 months in Tennessee whiskey barrels. most
Ooh.
most reposados are aged in American white oak barrels. So our reposado is different as well because it has a flavor profile that has whiskey
Let me
in
tell
it.
you something right now. When you tell me where I can get it.
Yes, yes. Well, you are in Harlem,
Yeah.
right? We are at, do you know Happy Cork in Brooklyn?
Yeah.
We're in Happy Cork.
Okay.
So Sunshine, she supports our brand, and I love Sunshine. So we are in Happy Cork in Brooklyn. And actually, if you have a store near you, they can actually order it for you if you want them to, because we are available in New York and New Jersey.
Okay.
But we do, our third expression is our Blanco, which is actually got gold as one of the 50 best Blancos. And our limited release, which we did release on Tequila Day, which was July 24th, we had the first Tarraco Blood Orange tequila. So our blood orange tequila came from the natural extracts of the Tarraco blood oranges grown in Sicily, Italy.
All right. Yeah. And see, Tequila Day is my
So
birthday, so I should have known that.
so it's something that we did because again we want to do something different. But with Anteel Tequila, we are actually in. We started only in Michigan, and now actually during COVID, during the last year and a half, we expanded to 7 other states. So we are
Look.
actually in 8 states. So we are in Michigan, California, Florida, Texas, New York, New Jersey, and Georgia, and Michigan.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
and then we also have nationwide shipping.
Okay.
So, if you go to our website, anteeltequila.com, you can actually, if you're in one of those states that I mentioned, you can go to our store locator and put in a zip code, and it should give you a store near you
Okay.
that has our tequila. But again, any store in any of those states can order the tequila for you and it can be delivered.
Perfect.
Or we do have online ordering. So, our retailers that do our shipping online. They are on our website as well.
Okay.
And on social media, we are Anteel Tequilas on all social media platforms. So we encourage people to follow because we do recipes, we do all of those things because tequila is not just for spring and summer. Because most people are like, I only drink margaritas, I only do shots. We're trying to educate
Yeah.
people that if you drink a premium tequila, especially like our reposado, which has whiskey flavor profile, you can sip it nice fall night in front of a fire. You got
Come
you
on.
can sip it just like a good scotch, bourbon, or whiskey. And our tequilas are all sippable, so that means that you can try all of them by themselves.
Right.
Most blancos are harsh, a little harsh. Ours is 2 times distilled, so it takes a lot of
Ooh,
that
nice and
harshness
soft.
out.
Yeah.
Yes, so you can drink our blanco on the rocks or something like that, but all of our tequilas actually mix well in cocktails too.
Okay.
So, we do a lot of education about tequila. We do a lot of cocktails and things that people may not think about because we want people to know that it's not just for spring and summer. So it's getting fall. So I know my
Look
husband is going to
now,
make one of my favorite apple cinnamon margaritas. We do hot apple cider with reposado. We do hot chocolate.
all of that,
Okay.
all of
So
that.
yes, we do hot toddies, hot tea toddies. So we do all of that.
That sounds,
We
yeah.
let's see, last year we made a hot chocolate bar, a
Oh
hot
yeah.
cocoa bar. So we had the sprinkles and the marshmallows, and I can't eat it because it's the sugar, but
You're like,
you know, it
I
was,
mean, ooh,
I
that sounds
tasted the
fantastic.
hot chocolate. It was delicious
Yeah. Yeah, I was about
with
to
the
say hot chocolate with a
reposado in it.
little bit of, oh, that sounds good. Okay.
Yes. So,
Because I usually drink my tequila on the rocks because I
mhm,
typically only go for premium tequila because I'm just like,
yes.
I'm not messing around
Well,
with
it's better for
that.
you
It is.
because then you're not going to have those hangovers and headaches because a premium spirit, not just tequila, but
Premium.
a
Yeah.
well, some it depends on your body composition, but a premium tequila, you can drink it. And if you're sipping on it, and let's say you have a couple of drinks, you should be okay if
Yeah.
you're not putting a lot of sugar in it.
Exactly. And I also with sugar, adding a fruit cocktail to your stuff all the time is the problem. Um,
That is the
that's
issue,
the
and
issue.
and that's why I have to tell the people who tell me, "Oh, I don't drink tequila. I don't do that because spring break 1985 or 1992. I was throwing up everywhere." And I'm like, "Okay,
Okay.
first of all, what were you drinking? You forgot the
Right.
whole day. You was drinking garbage pill,
Come on
whatever.
now.
You was drinking Bahama Mamas, but you remember that shot of tequila. And what it was that shot? It was probably a mixto because it
Exactly.
was a gold tequila because that's all you could
For
afford, and a mixto is half sugar, so it's 51% tequila, 49% agave nectar or cane sugar. So you added on top of everything you was drinking a tequila shot that was half sugar, but you blame tequila.
okay.
Come on
All
now.
right. All right. You know what?
I need y'all to get better. I need you to
Let's
know
all
more.
rise, y'all. Let's
Ask
rise
questions.
and do
Ask
more.
questions.
Now that y'all know better, you should be doing better. Oh
You
my
should do
goodness.
better.
Well,
Exactly.
thank you so much for hopping in here for like kicking off the season. I am so excited about the season. I'm like, after this conversation, I'm like, yeah, this was a good idea. I
Yes.
am
Thank
looking
you.
forward to. My big plan is to insert some like social media like videos with of just using the brands that I've discovered and that where I'm talking to right
Okay.
now, and making maybe some cocktail videos or pulling on some other bartenders to do some videos for us where they use the brands to actually mix some drinks, maybe make some recipes to distribute and put
Yes.
out on the website for folks. So yes, I'm excited to like start to add more to the bar cart that I have, and
Yes.
experience some new stuff. So thank you again. I will. We of course blast everything on social media. If there is
We do too.
anything that